Hey everybody, it's your old pal Mad Dog back here with the back of the house blog and videos. We'll get these posted, and today it is cold. We had some sneak previews of things that may be here in as few as 3 to 3.5 months from now, namely when the weather gets back into the 40s, if not the 50s, which is extremely rare for mid-January up here in the middle of the big dirt ocean. But today it's probably, I don't know, 8 and the wind's blowing, so the official temperature is just too damn cold. It doesn't matter. Temperature gets under a certain level and it's just plain cold. It doesn't matter what the number is. It sucks. It's cold. But that's what living here is like. And you got to be mentally tough and you got to be physically tough. And a good way to get both is to make yourself a pot of chili. I've had chili on the mind as long as the weather forecast. I knew it was going to get cold, and when it gets cold, that's the perfect time to get some going. I use the crock pot for this. I've got a post up there explaining my entire process. I don't have a recipe, I have a process. I have what used to be a recipe, and it keeps going this way, and it goes this way, and it goes this way, and it goes over here, and all kinds of places. It just depends on how I feel and, sort of what I've got going, what rabbit holes I've been down. Speaking of that, got another post up there that I'm calling Down the Rabbit Hole. This is if you want to get inside my head, which is a deep, windy place that's full of all kinds of nooks and crannies of God knows what, some of which I really can't tell you about, but it's in there. I'm put stuff up there in great detail. And the thing I put up there in great detail today is, to get right to the point, is about chili spices. If you make Midwestern chili, which I think basically we all do, it's the beans, it's tomato based, maybe you like it mild, maybe you like to blow your head off with the stuff with spice, but I really like to try and cram as much flavor as I can into all these. And over the years, I've learned one great way to do that. The greatest variable in any batch of chili really is the spice blend. And I've settled on a number of them. If you're using a standard commercial chili powder that you get at the grocery store, for instance, one of the big national names, or you pick it up at a big box retailer like Costco or Sam's Club, that's fine. As long as you found one that you really like. When you buy something marked chili powder, it's part chili powder, but it's part of a lot of other things. Those are proprietary blends that are put together from all sorts of different things, and they all have slightly different flavor profiles depending on what they're trying to achieve. There is such a thing as pure chili powder, and let me show you one of those. This is ancho chili powder. Anchos are poblano peppers. You can buy those in the store. I've got one in the fridge, and they're delicious. Poblanos are mild, and when they're dried, they become an ancho, and they're kind of a wrinkly pepper. They've got the seeds in them. When you buy dried peppers, you don't want ones that are all crispy. You want ones that feel like they're kind of leathery and maybe kind of pliant, and you're going to apply a little heat to them and loosen them up a little bit. You're going to get the seeds out of the middle and the veins, pull off any of the inedible parts like the stems and so forth. And then you can use that in a lot of ways, and those are phenomenal ways to cook. Another pure one you might be used to is this. That's cayenne, very familiar in the Southeast Louisiana lexicon, used in all kinds of Cajun stuff. Those are pure chili powders. When it says ancho, that's all that's in there. When it says cayenne, that's all that's in there. You might buy some chipotle powder. If you buy that, that's all that's in there. These are blends. This is the Penzeys Hot Chili Powder Blend. I buy this stuff in just about 4-ounce bags. That's a quarter of a pound, and what you see in here is maybe enough for one really good batch of chili, and that's maybe a little more, but anyway, it's really good. That's kind of my baseline. I tend to tweak it a little bit, and you can read about that. But I want to show you one of the greatest discoveries I ever made so far. A couple years ago, and I explained this in the post, I was sort of out there surfing around, and I'd been curious about Texas-style chili for a long time. You hear about that, and it's everything that you probably think it is. It's all meat generally. There might be an onion in it, maybe some peppers that floated in it, maybe. But generally speaking, you're talking meat, beef, might be ground, might be chunked up, but it's probably beef, and it's a little bit of liquid that might be a teeny bit of tomato sauce, or more likely is chicken stock or beef broth. And then highly seasoned, and I mean highly seasoned. I've always been curious about what makes it super unique, and when you hear about highly seasoned, what the hell does that mean? Well, I found out. One day when I was supposed to be doing other things, I found an article about some of the international world champion chili winners from the cook-off in Terlingua, Texas. Go look it up yourself and enjoy that. But there were a couple of winners that shared their recipes and their formulas. Very simple, but the spice blends are not. The spice blend is probably 98% of the recipe. It's like ingredients, spice blend. It's long, and there's a lot of stuff. And just to get to the point, I know how to source some of these things, and this stuff wasn't going to get sourced. And if you were going to source it, just to find all those ingredients and to get them in the quantities you were going to need to put together a couple of blends was probably going to cost you a couple $100, assuming you could find the stuff. I've looked for this stuff in grocery stores in Texas. It's not there. You'd have to get in the truck and put a cooler of Lone Star in the back and run all the hell over the place to try and find a bunch of this stuff. You might be able to do it on the interwebs. I've never tried. But I did notice that one of the places that was mentioned in conjunction with some of these spices was a spice retailer called Pendry's. I thought, well, maybe that's just that Penzies misspelled. Totally different things. You can read about Penzies, and you can read about it in the blog post. But let me show you what I got from Pendry's. These folks have a lot of the materials that goes into some of these blends, but some of the Terlingua winners have shared their blend recipe with Pendry's, who has gone ahead and blended it, and you can buy the blend. Price is nice. You can buy a ton of this stuff for about what you're going to spend on most of this. I can buy damn near $100 worth of spices at a time without even breaking a sweat. No big deal whatsoever. And these are comparable price. Like I said, the blends are all there. This is Carol West's 1999 winning blend called Chili Magic. And for making, I don't know how much you're supposed to use, but you use maybe a pound of beef or so. But these are big bags, and you use a lot of this stuff. You're going to end up using a whole lot of this blend. It doesn't really say, but I can guess. And the answer is a lot. Like maybe 8-10 tablespoons of this stuff. That's probably upwards. We're probably approaching a half of a cup by the time you get all that in. Don't be afraid of it. It works. This is half of the Glenn Dickey blend. Glenn won in I think 1998 or 99. Like I said, this is half of it. These things sometimes, Carol West blend is one blend. It goes in, it stays in, it cooks in it, just like you probably do with your stuff. Glenn Dickey, you add a bunch at the very beginning, and 30 minutes before you add the contents of this. There are more. This is the Bob Coates stuff. I've used this, but I actually use this to make it as directed. I'm going to tell you, folks, don't tell anybody in Texas, but I use these in the Midwestern style chili. I use these in mine. I use more or less the quantities that I think are associated with what I've got in a crock pot full of it. I add it when they're supposed to be added, and it's great. As I sit here, and as I've spent a couple hours today hacking through nothing but chili, I've started to wonder whether I want to make this batch tomorrow with the old standby, or if we're putting this puppy in it. And either way, I'm definitely ordering more because this stuff is great. And I thought I probably had this almost as good as I could get it. Better. And, you know, we got some plans coming up, and there might be some chili around somewhere that maybe somehow, someday, some of you might get to try if you're very lucky. Big weekend for football. Lots of exciting games going on. I've got to shower up and get my proverbial shit together so I can enjoy some and actually get some productive things done today. Everybody have a great day. Rock on, play a train song, make a pot of chili. You're going to be glad you did tomorrow. It's going to be cold.